Hello and welcome back to Coffee and Cartridges. Hope you're having a great day. I think today I'm just going to nerd out about some ballistics. So today I want to pose this question. Is there a such thing as the perfect caliber and case combination? And what I mean by that is, you have let's use the case of a 30-06 and its family. So the 25-06, the 270, the 280, the 30-06, the 35 Whelen, they all have the same case. Is there a perfect caliber for that case? So is the 35 the perfect caliber for that case? Is it the original? Is it the 30 caliber? And if that's the case, is it always the original, the parent design? Or would the 308 be better, that 30 caliber be better in the 308 case compared to, a 338 Federal, 7mm odd 8, 260, 243? Is there an answer to that? Well, of course, the real answer is it just depends. It depends on what you want it for. It depends on what you're looking for, the application that you would like to use it for. For instance, if you say, well, I like the 308 case and the farthest shot I'm going to take is 100 yards and I don't care about recoil, but I like that case, which caliber should I go with? Probably the 338 Federal or something like that. Or maybe you say, well, I love the 308 case, but I want something that's ultra fast, has no recoil, and I don't care about it having a heavy bullet. And in fact, I want to shoot it at long range, then the 243 would be better for that application. So that's the real answer. The real answer is no, it just depends, but I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to give you what my opinion is. So let's just set the stage here. Let's just talk about some ballistics here for a second. Going back to the 35 Whelen, 30-06, and the 270. Let's say you want to shoot a 150 grain bullet out of all three of those, okay? Now, it's the same bullet. What's going to happen ballistically when you shoot that? Well, of course, the 150 grain bullet in the 270 is going to be like this. And then the 150 grain bullet in the 30-06 is going to be a little shorter, a little wider. And then, of course, the 150 grain bullet in the 35 Whelen is going to be even shorter, even wider. Okay? What does that mean? Well, it means that the 270 150 grain bullet is going to have a higher ballistic coefficient. It's going to be longer with higher sectional density, probably more aerodynamic. And it's going to be the slowest of all three. And then as you go up with that same grain bullet, you're going to go down on BC and you're going to go up on velocity. You get to that 35 Whelen shooting 150 grain bullet, it's going to be screaming. And its BC will be really low. Does that matter? Depends on what you want to use it for. First of all, let's answer the question, why the bigger caliber you get, would the same grain bullet be faster? It's the same case, right? Well, I have two answers for that. One I'm 100% certain of, and the second one I believe, and you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. So the first thing is, let's say that 35 Whelen 150 grain bullet, that short, fat bullet, is not going to have to be seated very far into that 30-06 case, compared to the longer, thinner 270 bullet, given an overall length of the cartridge being the same and assuming similar chamber and magazine, it's going to have to be seated further in. Therefore, you have less case capacity. So 150 grain bullet out of a 30-06 case in a 270 caliber versus a 35 caliber simply is going to have less case capacity in the 270. You're going to have more case capacity in the 35 because it doesn't take up as much room in the case, okay? This is all things being equal, and I know there's a lot of variables that I'm not talking about, but all things being equal, that's what's going to happen. Let's assume you're using the same powder. You're just going to have more room for more powder. Therefore, your bullet's going to shoot, theoretically, faster. You can look in a reloading manual at, say, a 270, 150 grain bullet. It's going to top out at maybe 2,900 feet per second. And a 30-06 is going to easily get to 3,000 with that 150 grain bullet. It's just definitely going to happen. Now, the second thing, and I'm not 100% certain of this, so if you know a lot about physics and things like that, maybe you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But I just think about, that 150 grain 270 bullet compared to the 30-06, compared to the 35 Whelen, there's just more surface area on the back of that bullet, especially if it's not a boat tail design and it's a flat base bullet. Therefore, I think when that explosion happens, that controlled explosion, and the powder ignites, there's more surface area to hit and push that bullet out of there. I believe that's the second reason why a bigger caliber, same weight bullet is just going to go faster. So let's talk about sectional density. Does sectional density matter? So a longer, sleeker, thinner 270 caliber 150 grain bullet is going to have a higher sectional density than a short, fat 35 Whelen bullet. If you're shooting at a white-tailed deer at 100 yards, as long as you got the right bullet, right bullet construction, it probably doesn't matter. Okay, but let's just say that you're shooting at a moose with that thick hide and those much stronger muscles and bones, or an elk. That sectional density could be an advantage, especially at a little bit longer ranges, to get deeper penetration. Okay, that is something to think about. And then, of course, the frontal surface area of the bigger caliber bullets, in theory, are better. So let's just say a 6.5 caliber versus a 30 caliber. One is 6.5 millimeters. The other one is roughly 7.5 millimeters. Okay, I know it's 7.62, but let's just say roughly a millimeter difference. Okay, you say, really, a millimeter? The frontal surface area of a bullet is a millimeter bigger? You think that matters? It does matter some. But don't forget, when the bullet hits and it mushrooms, it's going to expand its diameter, its caliber, to, let's just say, an average of half. Okay, it's going to double its size. That's what I meant to say. It's going to double its size. It could do less than double. It could do a lot more than double, but let's just say double. So if you double 6.5 millimeter and you double 7.5 millimeter, the difference is also double. So maybe it's 2 millimeters difference in surface area. You'd say, does that really matter? Well, it could. That little bit of extra, surface making a bigger hole could create more blood loss, possibly. It could nick an artery, a bone, an organ, something like that. Now, if you're making the shot you want to make, that shouldn't matter, but I'm just saying the potential is there, okay? When it comes to a bullet, all that really matters is three things. I guess four. Number one, the inside design of the bullet, therefore its construction, how it's constructed, and what therefore its intended purpose is to do when it reaches its target. The outside design of the bullet, or its aerodynamics, which is where your ballistic coefficient comes from. How fast is it traveling as soon as it leaves the barrel? And how much does it weigh? That's all that matters, okay? And then your case is more complicated, but really it's just the reservoir to hold your powder. How much powder can it hold? There is nuances to it, but that's basically what it comes down to. So could there be the perfect caliber for a .308 case? Could there be the perfect caliber for a .30-06 case? Just two examples. Once again, the real answer is it just depends on what you're looking for. But that's a boring video, right? So I'm going to give you my answer. First of all, let's just step back and talk about the 30-06 case. Now, let me diverge for 1 second and talk about the Ackley improved 30-06 case. I think it's pretty interesting that when you Ackley improve any caliber in the 30-06 family, any of its children, it improves them significantly. And the one it improves the least is the 30 caliber itself, the 30-06. Of course, it adds a little bit of case capacity, so it's going to have some kind of performance potential. But in reality, no, it doesn't. It's not doing a whole lot. It's not worth going through all that, having to rechamber your barrel and to fire form your brass and all that. It's just not worth it. It's just not enough difference to really matter. But yet when you take that same case neck down to 280 and then you Ackley improve it, it's much more significant. Same with the 338-06, 65-06, 25-06. All those have quite a bit of improvement when you Ackley improve them. That says something to me that the 30 caliber is just almost perfectly suited for that case. Not that there's anything wrong with the other ones, because they're all phenomenal. But maybe it's perfectly suited for it. It's the best combo, the perfect match. And if that is true, it would make sense, being that's how it was designed. It's the parent, cartridge. So back to the comparison of the, let's say, 270 versus 30-06. Both shooting 150 grain bullet. 30-06 is going to be a little faster, like we talked about. Therefore, it's going to have a little bit more energy. Same mass, one has more velocity. That one that has more velocity also has more energy. But as we talked about, with the lower BC, at ranges, it's going to lose its energy and it's going to slow down a little faster. Okay? And the 270, it's going to start out a little slower with a little bit less energy, but because it's losing it slower at range, it'll actually hold on to it longer. So it's just a simple matter of what kind of range are you shooting at? Are you planning on shooting an animal at 400 yards or 100 yards? Okay, so that would make a big difference. Something else to talk about is recoil. I've talked about this several times on my channel, but every caliber can get the same every caliber can get the same ballistic coefficient number. It just was going to take a heavier and heavier bullet. The same BC that a 6.5 has in 140 class is the same BC a 7mm has in 160, 170 class. And it's the same BC a 30 caliber has in a 210 class. What's the difference? Well, if you don't care about recoil, then there's no difference. You just get what you like and you move on. But if you do care about recoil, which I do, I'm not saying I can't take it, but I do care about recoil. If I'm looking for a long range bullet with a BC over 600 and I am thinking of a 30 caliber 210 grain bullet versus a 6.5 caliber 140 grain bullet, that's a big difference in recoil. But once again, how far are you shooting? What's your application? If BC means nothing to you, which a lot of hunters, especially in the Midwest or East, would definitely say it's not as big of a deal as it is in the West, then it doesn't matter, right? You don't need that 210 grain bullet in a 30-06. You can shoot a 150 grain bullet, 165 grain bullet. Something else to talk about is how much powder compared to how heavy of a bullet. For instance, if I have a 308 and a 30-06, and I think I really want to shoot maybe a 190 grain bullet, 180, 190 grain bullet, for hunting elk, let's say. Which one of those two cartridges would work better? Well, first of all, they would both work. There's no question, they would both work. But if I'm talking about the heavier bullet, you're obviously going to lean toward the case with a little bit more powder, okay? Because you know the heavier bullet's going to be going slower, but you don't want it to go so slow that you lose some ballistics. So, just generally speaking, yeah, 30-06 would be better suited for that, okay? Especially if you're talking about a 220 grain bullet, you definitely wouldn't want the 308. This is going to take up too much of your case capacity, okay? Another example, 7mm odd 8 versus a 7 mag. Which one's better? Depends. Let's say you're shooting a 130 grain bullet out of it, and you're planning on shooting at short range, and it's just for hunting whitetail deer. Once again, it just depends on what you want and what you're looking for, but I think the 7mm odd 8 would be maybe a more efficient version of that. But maybe you just want to go out of your way to make sure they drop like a rock. Well, then potentially, if you don't make the perfect shot, the 7 mag has more energy. You know, it's just your call. But I would lean toward the 308, I'm sorry, the 7mm odd 8 for those lighter bullets. It just seems to be a better match to me. If you're shooting a 180 grain bullet out of a 7mm for hunting purposes, I think it's very obvious go with the 7 mag compared to the 7mm odd 8. So there is not going to be a profound answer here. It's just whatever you want. But once again, just my opinion. Let's just take 30 caliber. Let's take 300 Win Mag, 30-06, 308, and then let's just take a 300 Savage. A 300 Savage is basically real similar to a Creedmoor case. It's not the same thing, but the 30 TC and the 300 Savage, they're really not that different. They are different, but not that different. What are you getting here? So from the 30 TC or the 300 Savage on up, you're just getting a bigger case. Every step up, you get bigger until you get to, say, the 300 Win Mag or the 300 Weatherby, okay? So as your case goes up, obviously it holds more powder. It's going to recoil more, but it's going to shoot the bullet faster, okay? Therefore, more energy. And let's say you go with a 165 grain bullet throughout that whole gamut of cartridges that I mentioned. What's going to happen? The more powder, the faster, more energy. The smaller case, just that bigger, that same weight bullet's just going to come out slower. That's all there is to it. So what am I getting at with this? Well, when I look at a 30-06 and I look at the ballistics, I feel like that 30 caliber just suits it perfectly. Now, if you're going to actually improve the case, no, I think the 280 just fits that perfectly. But let's just say the standard 30-06, I think that case fits a 30 caliber perfectly. And I think it fits a 180 grain bullet perfectly, okay? Doesn't have the super high BC, but it's not 150 grain bullet just flying, okay? But let's say I did want a 150 grain bullet or 130 grain bullet just flying out of a 30 caliber. 30-06 would definitely do it. But maybe I don't need as much powder for that. Or maybe I can still get the velocity I'm trying to achieve with less powder. Maybe 130 grain 30 caliber bullet or 150 grain would be just perfect out of a 308. So I really do think there's kind of an optimum there. And I'll repeat myself for the 10th time, but I know it depends. I understand that. Okay, but I think it's fun to think about. It's like all these sliding scales: bullet weight, case capacity, caliber. And it just seems like there's a point where they all kind of just line up. Like 30-06 case, 30 caliber, 180 grain bullet. Just seems to just line up. Well, let's go down just slightly on the caliber. Let's go down to 7mm caliber. Well, let's also go down just slightly on the case capacity, 308 case. And let's just drop down a little bit on the bullet weight, maybe 140 grain, 150 grain. And it just seems like a perfect match. That 7mm bullet in that 308 case with that 140 grain, give or take a little bit, bullet just seems to be a perfect match. What about a 300 short magnum? You got your 325, your 300, your 7mm, your 270. Based on how magnumized and compact that case is, it tends for me to think that actually the 30 caliber is ideal for that, okay? Having said that, I own a 270 short mag and I love it. But I just feel like how much case capacity it has, you know, it just tends to be perfect for the 30 caliber. In my opinion, I look at the Creedmoor case, and I like the 6.5 Creedmoor. I think it's pretty cool. But it's a little bit smaller case. It just doesn't have the case capacity. A little shorter. You get that down to a 6mm. Now it's perfect. Now it's right there where it needs to be. I look at a 223 case, and I know there's the 300 blackout and all that kind of stuff. There's some cool stuff that has came from the 308. I'm sorry, the 223 case. But in reality, that 223 case and a 22 caliber, it's a perfect match. I think of a Weatherby case, and I think of a 30 caliber. It just seems like a perfect match. It's just a balancing act. It's like, how much recoil do I want to withstand? How high of a BC bullet am I looking for? How fast do I want this bullet to go? And then how much do I want it to weigh? And then once I figure that out, it's just, well, what caliber and cartridge would best meet that perfect combo? Say something controversial here, but when I think of a 280 Ackley improved, I think of that being an improvement on the 270. And I know they're different calibers, which I'm not a huge fan of the 270, but I respect the heck out of it. It's been an awesome classic cartridge for a long time. I've got nothing bad to say about it. It's cool. But when I look at a 270, my first thought is neck that up to 280, Ackley improve it. Now you have an updated, improved, literally improved version of it. I look at a 308, which by the way is my preferred whitetail deer caliber in the woods here in Missouri. But when I look at it, the first thing I think of is neck that thing down to 7mm, and you have the ideal combination. So what do you think? Do you think about things like this? Do you think there are an ideal combination of caliber and case? Or do you think you're just overthinking this? Just accept them all, they're all awesome. If that's what you believe, that's fine. And if you do believe there's ideal combos out there, what do you think they are? What would be your ideal combos? Let's say for each of your popular cartridges or calibers. Love to hear what you have to say. Enjoyed talking to you. Hope you have a great day. And until next time, take care.